Silent scars, unbroken spirit. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the bustling streets of the small city of Ik. The air was filled with the scent of fried plantains, and the hum of motorcycles filled the distance as they wove through the lively traffic. Amidst this vibrant chaos, in a quiet corner of Ik, stood a modest two-story house. Inside, the energy was different, a blend of excitement and unease. Inside, 12-year-old Ella sat on the edge of the sofa, her wide, curious eyes scanning the room as her fingers picked nervously at the hem of her dress. Her mother, Jane, a tall woman with a commanding presence, bustled about, giving instructions to the housemaid, Faith, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen. "Ella, make sure your room is tidy," Jane called out, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping on the counter. "Yes, Mother," Ella replied, though she stayed seated, her mind elsewhere. Today was a big day. Her uncle, Toby, was coming to live with them. He was her father's younger brother, a man she barely knew, having only met him a few times on brief family visits. She'd heard whispers between her parents about why Toby was moving in, something about financial troubles and a failed business. Her father, Dean, had insisted that Toby stay with them to get back on his feet. The sound of the front door opening snapped Ella from her thoughts. Her father entered, carrying a small, battered suitcase, looking tired but determined. Behind him was Uncle Toby, his large frame filling the doorway. "Welcome, Uncle," Ella said quietly as she rose, watching her father place the suitcase by the stairs. Toby's eyes lit up when he saw her, and he smiled broadly. "Ella, how you've grown," he boomed in a deep voice, pulling her into a hug that lingered a little too long. Ella stiffened but managed a polite smile. Jane appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Welcome, Toby," she greeted him with a polite smile. "Thank you for having me," Toby replied, his voice softened with gratitude. "Ella, why don't you show your uncle to his room?" Jane instructed, and Ella nodded, lifting Toby's suitcase. It was heavier than she expected, but she managed, feeling her uncle's gaze on her as she led him upstairs. The room prepared for him was modest, with a single bed and a wooden wardrobe by the window overlooking the yard. "Thank you, Ella," Toby said as she set the suitcase by the bed. His voice had softened, and his gaze lingered a little too long. She muttered a quick, "You're welcome," and hurried out, feeling a strange unease. Halfway down the stairs, she paused, hearing her parents talking in low voices. "Are you sure this is the right decision?" Jane asked, her tone hesitant. "We barely know him. Jane is my brother. He needs our help. What kind of family would we be if we turned him away?" Ella didn't wait to hear more. She continued down the stairs, trying to push away the feeling that something was off. Her parents trusted Uncle Toby. So why shouldn't she? That evening, the family gathered for dinner, though the mood was subdued. Dean asked Toby questions about his journey, trying to engage him, but Toby answered in short responses, seeming distracted. Ella picked at her food, aware of Toby's occasional glances her way. Each time his gaze lingered, a chill ran through her. After dinner, her father suggested they watch a movie together, a rare treat. They settled on an old Nollywood film, hoping the humor and nostalgia would lift everyone's spirits. Ella sat on the floor near the sofa, her back resting against the armrest, but she could still feel Toby's presence looming. At one point, she felt a light touch on her shoulder. She looked up and saw his hand resting just above her, fingers grazing her shoulder. His face was unreadable, eyes fixed on the screen. "Ella, come sit here," her mother suddenly said, motioning for her to join her on the other side of the couch. Ella moved quickly, feeling her mother's unspoken protection. The rest of the night passed quietly, but Ella couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that followed her to bed. Over the next few weeks, Toby's presence grew, as did Ella's discomfort around him. When her parents were out or preoccupied, he would find small ways to be near her, cornering her in the hallway or pressing too close. Her heart would pound, fear tightening her chest, but she kept quiet, too afraid and too confused to speak out. As Ella grew into a young adult, these experiences remained buried inside her, shaping her in ways she didn't understand. She excelled in school, burying herself in her studies as a way to escape, creating a successful yet guarded life. But behind her accomplishments lay the deep scars of her childhood, invisible to those around her. Her relationships were brief, often empty. She found herself drawn to validation from others, seeking something to fill the emptiness that lingered in her heart. Then she met Chike. They crossed paths at a friend's wedding, and Ella was struck by his warmth and sincerity. Chike was confident but gentle, with a kindness in his eyes she hadn't seen before. They shared a brief conversation that lingered with her long after the wedding ended. When he reached out to her a few weeks later, they began meeting for coffee and long walks. Chike's presence became a light in her life, one that softened the darkness of her past. But the shadows of her past lingered. The more her feelings for Chike grew, the more she struggled with the idea of sharing her story. The fear of rejection, of being seen as damaged, kept her silent. Chike, perceptive as ever, sensed her reluctance but never pressed. He held space for her, his patience easing her burden. One evening, after a long dinner and a quiet walk home, Chike held her hand, his gaze steady. "Ella," he said softly, "I know there's more to you than what you're showing me. I just want you to know that I'm here. You don't have to face it alone." His words reached a part of her heart she'd kept locked away. But before she could share her past, fate intervened. Chike was involved in a tragic accident, leaving Ella alone once more. The loss crushed her, opening old wounds that never fully healed. She spiraled into despair, shutting herself away from the world. It was during her darkest days that her pet dog, Max, became her closest companion. She projected her memories of Chike onto Max, blurring the lines between reality and delusion. She spoke to Max as if he were Chike, clinging to the comfort his presence brought her. Over time, Ella's physical health began to decline. She grew weaker and more isolated, convincing herself that her illness was a punishment for the pain she carried. When she finally sought help, doctors diagnosed her with a severe infection that had gone untreated for too long. The prognosis was bad, but the hospital became a place of healing for her in unexpected ways. Her pastor, who visited her daily, offered a listening ear, and in a moment of vulnerability, Ella finally shared her story. Confessing her past lifted a weight from her heart, and the kindness of the church community brought her a sense of hope. In time, Ella began to heal, both physically and emotionally. Her recovery was slow, but the support of her community guided her forward. She found new strength and purpose, allowing herself to believe in a future where her past no longer defined her. Ella never shared her story with her family. Some burdens, she felt, were hers to carry alone. Yet, in the quiet moments, she held onto the memory of Chike and the strength he had given her, knowing that despite her past, she was worthy of love and healing. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, comment, share it with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.